Hello, this is HealthCheck from the BBC World Service. I'm ClaudiaHammond. Today, why more than 10 million teenage girls won't be getting their expected vaccines this year to protect them from cervical cancer later on in life. And try imagining one of your favourite songs in your head. Not everyone can do it, and later on from New Zealand, we'll be hearing why. And my guest for the whole show today is Monica Lackenpool, who is Professor of Integrated Community Child Health at University College London. Welcome back, Monica. Let me ask you something. Have you been on any flights recently or a while ago that have been a little bit bumpy?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have. I had one really difficult experience actually flying over to Hong Kong. We were just flying along and suddenly the plane dropped. All the announcements came on asking us to sit tight. We weren't expecting it, but the food was flying, the drinks were flying, people being sick, quite a little bit of screaming. So a little bit challenging, a little bit scary. But the pilot brought us back up. We thought we were going to be diverted, but luckily we got back safe and sound on the ground.
Well, I was on a flight myself in the autumn where the plane, again, it dropped so suddenly that there was an older woman who was in the toilet and she fell and she hit her head and it was bleeding and paramedics had to come on board to help her when she was landed. She was okay, luckily. But anecdotally, there do seem to be more and more stories like this. And just last week, a man broke his leg on a flight from Indonesia to New Zealand as a result of turbulence. And this got me wondering whether injuries due to turbulence are on the rise. And the person who knows the answer is Paul Williams, who's Professor of Atmospheric Science at the University of Reading in the UK. And first he told me more about some of the most recent incidents.
Well, there have been quite a few recently, and that's not too surprising because we do tend to see more injuries in the winter months. Because there's a particular form of turbulence called clear air turbulence that normally spikes in winter. There was an Air New Zealand flight flying from Indonesia to Auckland, and it flew through some pretty rough air, some pretty severe turbulence, and an unfortunate passenger had been to the bathroom and was actually, I think, walking back, according to the media reports, walking back to his seat when the plane just dropped unexpectedly, and sadly he broke a leg and had to have emergency medical treatment when the plane landed. And that's typical, actually. It's usually fractures to limbs, sometimes head trauma, lacerations, and even burns from hot drinks being spilled. So those are the typical sort of injuries we see when a plane flies through severe turbulence.
And I guess the seatbelt protects people a lot of the time. Is it often the people who are walking about or the people who are in the toilet at the time who are the ones who get injured?
Almost always, yes. And that's my piece of advice, really. I get asked a lot about turbulence and what to do about it, and just keeping your seatbelt fastened, even when the seatbelt sign is not switched on and legally you don't have to be seatbelted. I certainly always keep my seatbelt fastened. It's virtually a guarantee of safety.
Now, I've noticed on flights recently, and I may just be unlucky, that there seemed to have been quite a lot of turbulence. I was on a flight where a woman who'd gone to the loo and fell was injured and hurt her head, and that was bleeding. And there seems to have been more of it. And other people are saying to me that they seem to have been on flights where there's more turbulence. Is it true? Is turbulence on the increase?
Yes, it is. We've built up a lot of evidence now. I started looking into this over a decade ago. And over that 10-year period, we've looked at how turbulence has changed in the atmosphere and how we expect it to change in the future. And we've investigated the links with climate change as well. And you're not imagining things. We know, for example, that today the amount of severe turbulence in the North Atlantic, over the North Atlantic Ocean, is 55% more than it was in the late 1970s. And also, for example, there's 41% more over the United States. So pretty much around the world, really, in the mid latitudes. So that's where the jet stream is, and that's what generates a lot of this clear air turbulence. And it turns out that climate change is tampering with the jet stream, changing it in unexpected ways. There's a pattern to the warming, and that's increasing what we call the wind shear in the jet stream, and that's what's generating more turbulence. And looking to the future, we can expect, according to a study we published recently, a 149% increase in the amount of severe turbulence in the coming decades. So there's already been an increase, and that looks very much set to continue into the future.
Is there anything we can do to prevent that? I mean, apart from obviously tackling climate change?
Tackling climate change is the obvious one. We could get better at forecasting turbulence. There's other experimental technologies that we're not using yet, but we could see used in future. There's something called LiDAR, which is a little bit like radar, but uses a different kind of light. The real hazard is this invisible clear air turbulence, which doesn't show up on the radar. So you can be flying miles away from thunderstorms and through clear blue skies, and just suddenly you hit a pocket of turbulence, which the pilots had no idea was there. This LiDAR could potentially make that invisible turbulence visible inside the cockpit.
And of course, there might be people who are, I don't know, listening to this as they're on their way to an airport. And it does, make you think about this turbulence and whether people are going to get injured or not. But presumably, these incidents still are quite rare, are they? Even if they're becoming more common, most of us are not going to get injured.
That's right. So if you look at the statistics, we know that there are thousands of aircraft annually which encounter severe turbulence. And that sounds like a lot, but if you divide that by the number of planes in the skies, it's actually a tiny fraction. So, for example, the serious injury rate is 1 serious injury per 1 million departures. So 1 million aircraft have to take off for one person to be injured. The amount of turbulence in the atmosphere is serious turbulence is about 0.1%. So a tiny, tiny fraction of the atmosphere has severe turbulence in it. The chances of your flight seeking out that 0.1% of the atmosphere that's got the severe turbulence in it is tiny, tiny, tiny. But of course, given the number of planes in the skies, one of them sooner or later will encounter that turbulence and it will make the headlines, but it almost certainly won't be your flight. So please don't worry, put your seatbelt on and enjoy your flight.
And I guess even if the number's more than double, it's still the doubling of a very small number.
That's absolutely the point. So historically, we've had 0.1% of the atmosphere containing severe turbulence. Even if that were to double or treble, it's still only 0.2 to 0.3% of the atmosphere. So severe turbulence will always be rare. And I'm not suggesting that planes are going to start falling out of the skies because of this, or we will not be able to fly on certain routes anymore. It just means we need to take a little bit more caution.
Do you get everyone asking you about turbulence all the time when they find out what you do?
I do, taxi drivers, etc., and I get blamed when people say my flight was really bumpy. What? Why didn't you forecast this? That's what you do, isn't it? We're trying our best. My goal, really, for my career is to make these turbulence forecasts so good that nobody ever needs to fly through turbulence again. It's a massive challenge, but I'm working on it. And watch this space.
Well, good luck with that, Professor Paul Williams. Now, Monica, I think he was trying to reassure us there that these incidents are rare.
Yes, I think we have to keep this in mind. These are not common incidents. And we know that if you cross the road, people don't think every moment, my gosh, is something going to happen to me? We just cross the road. And of course, it's more likely something's going to happen to you when you cross the road than when you're flying in an aircraft. So we really need to keep that in context.
Yeah, good to keep that in mind, I think.